The World Cup is over, which means it's time for reflection, and where better to start than taking stock of all the incredible performances we saw this year. Records for both individuals and teams were equalled, and even better, broken all over the pitch. So let's round up some of the most exciting. Number 1. New streams of revenue. Unsurprisingly, given the culture's shift towards online streaming rather than traditional TV watching, this year's World Cup was the most streamed in the competition's history. Over 23.3 million hours of the World Cup was viewed via streaming devices, according to a video analytics company, Conviva, and most of that was through apps on Roku's, Chromecast and PlayStation as opposed to web browsers. With VAR introduced too, what a tech-savvy tournament it was. Number 2. The most penalties. Say what you will about its implementation, but VAR's impact was felt quickly, as the record for penalties awarded at a World Cup was smashed before the end of this year's group stage. More amazingly still, because of the ability to review, they were all pretty much correct calls. The tournament ended with 29 spot kicks awarded, one of them given via VAR in the final, and unsurprisingly, new records were set with the 22 penalties that were converted and the 7 that were missed or saved. Now we just need to work on them taking less time out of the game. Number 3. Most World Cup matches refereed. Penalties weren't the only refereeing-related record to be set this year. Officiating his 11th World Cup match, Ravshan Irmatov from Uzbekistan, of all places, became the man to have refereed the most World Cup matches. At just 40 years old, he's pretty young to have achieved the accomplishment, and was in fact the youngest referee to officiate a game at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, and was even handed the semi-final. Russia is his 3rd tournament, equalling the record there too, and with Qatar in just 4 years' time, the man voted as Asia's best referee by the Asian Football Confederation 2 years running could break another record. Number 4. Record-breaking yellow cards. Mexico's Jesus Gallardo should watch out regardless of who's refereeing his next World Cup game, as he earned himself a record for the fastest ever World Cup caution, receiving a yellow card for an elbow on Oliver Toivonen during El Tri's final group stage game against Sweden. Argentina entered the tournament with the most cumulative yellow cards of any side, and Javier Mascherano may have retired since their underwhelming exit in the round of 16, but he set a new tournament record for the Albiceleste before they went out, receiving his 7th World Cup yellow card in the game against France. Number 5. Fairplay points play a part. For particularly close groups, FIFA introduced 8 tiebreakers ahead of the tournament, and the 7th, fair play points, was particularly controversial. A system keeps track of how many yellow and red cards a team receives, and should the first 6 tiebreakers not separate the sides, the teams are compared on their cards haul, presumably to encourage clean games. Senegal became the first side to ever be eliminated from the World Cup on fair play points when they finished level with Japan on group stage points won, goal difference, goals scored, head-to-head, head-to-head differential, and head-to-head goals. Number 6. Biggest upset of a defending champion. Fair play points weren't needed to send Germany home though. Die Mannschafts' elimination may have followed an odd pattern of group stage exits for reigning World Cup champions, but they have a reason to feel even more embarrassed for the fashion in which it happened. Getting beaten 2-0 by South Korea to stop them from advancing was the biggest upset of a defending champion in World Cup history, as Germany entered into the tournament ranked number 1 and South Korea ranked 57th. It was also the competition's biggest ever upset of the team, which entered as the top rank. Number 7. Biggest upset in the knockout stage. South Korea may have had the biggest upset of a defending champion or number 1 ranked team, but they didn't claim the biggest ranking upset in the knockout stage. That honour went to the tournament's unlikely underdogs, Russia. Entering the tournament as the lowest ranked team at 70th, Russia managed to withstand Spain's attacks for 120 minutes before beating them on penalties, sending the 10th ranked team home in the round of 16. The South Africa vs France game in 2010 was perhaps the biggest ever group stage upset, with a difference of 74 between the teams, but the knockout stage certainly had a greater impact on things. Anything can happen in tournament football. Number 8. More Spain-Russia match records. The final result between Spain and Russia may have broken records, but records were also broken on the field when Russian centre-back Sergei Ignashevich became the oldest scorer of an own goal at 38 years old. Yet still Spain somehow lost the game, despite the historic own goal and racking up a new record number of completed passes in a game. They passed the ball 1,137 times in the game, whereas Russia managed only 285. The allergy to putting the ball in the net showed later when the two players missed their penalties for Spain. Maybe some shooting practice needed before the next World Cup. Number 9. Belgium shares the load. Team performances were very much the order of the tournament, and Belgium exemplified this better than most, sharing the goals around with great success. With 11 different goal scorers for the team, including one opponent who chipped in with an own goal for their tally, Belgium set a new record for the most individual goal scorers in one tournament, thanks to strikes from Batshuayi, Chadli, De Bruyne, Fellaini, Hazard, Januzaj, Lukaku, Mertens, Munier, Vertonghen, and Brazil's Fernandinho. Number 10. Own goals galore. Speaking of Fernandinho's own goal, there were a surprising amount of those too this year. 12 of them. FIFA tightened its definitions for deflections, which could be the reason the own goals tally finished this year at double the previous record, which was set in 1998. As if they weren't pervasive enough, there was even the first ever own goal scored in the final this year. Thankfully for Mario Mandzukic's sake, it wasn't the deciding one. Number 11. Plenty to cheer. Not to say that every World Cup game was the most exhilarating display of football ever, but there were surprisingly few snooze fests. Only one game of the 64 that comprised the tournament finished in a scoreless draw, which was a new record. Before that one between Denmark and the eventual winners France in the final group game the two sides would play, there had been 37 consecutive games without a 0-0 finish. Also a record. And all those goals were scored by 122 different scorers. Another record. Number 12. Set-piece surprises. 43% of the goals scored at this year's World Cup resulted from set pieces, as teams perfected their free kicks, corner routines, and even penalties to the golden opportunities that they are. The 71 set-piece goals scored across the competition were a new record, and 15 of the teams in Russia scored at least half of their goals from set pieces. No one had more luck with them than England, who scored 9 goals from set pieces, setting a new World Cup record after overtaking Portugal's 1966 return by 1. Number 13. England's most goals in a World Cup match. England beat Tunisia in their opening game, but whispers of football coming home only began after England smashed their record for goals in a World Cup game, scoring 6 times against Panama. It was the first time since 1966 that England had scored more than 4 goals in a World Cup game, and the first time ever they'd scored more than 5. It was also the first time England had led by 2 goals or more at half-time since 2002. Thrashing an opponent the previous generation would have ground out an unsatisfying result against showed the world the monkey was off England's back and the Lions were feeling confident once more. Number 14. Neymar leaves it late. By all accounts, Neymar's World Cup tournament will be best remembered for him rolling around on the ground for about 14 minutes total in the tournament by one broadcaster's estimation. But it wasn't a total bust, as he got to take home a new record with him before Brazil were dumped out by Belgium in the quarter-final. Netting a 97th minute winner against Costa Rica in Brazil's second group game, Neymar scored the latest ever World Cup goal in regulation time. You might have hoped he'd learn his lesson. He's more useful to his team on his fantastical feet than theatrically throwing himself to the ground in the penalty box. Number 15. Croatia's long road. Croatia also left it late, taking their 3 knockout games on the road to the final to extra time. By the time they came up against France, they'd effectively played an additional game thanks to the 3 30-minute added periods needed to separate them and their knockout stage opponents. They may not have pulled off the final win, but they did leave with a new record when they became the first team to win 3 knockout games in extra time. Number 16. Brazil gets one back on Germany. Neymar's goals may not have seen Brazil reach the final and thrash Germany there as many may have hoped heading into the tournament, but before the Samba boys were eliminated in the quarterfinals, they did manage to score 1 point against Germany. With their final goals tally this World Cup, they overtook Germany for cumulative World Cup goals scored, becoming the top scorers in the history of the World Cup on 229 goals. Number 17. Some old stuff. Despite all the focus on the young stars of the tournament and the second youngest side winning the whole thing, this year's World Cup saw a new record set for the oldest average age of all the players attending, at almost 28 years old. A large part of that is thanks to the oldest player to ever play at a World Cup, Egypt's goalkeeper, 45-and-a-half-year-old Essam El Hadri. Beautifully, it was also his World Cup debut, as it was Egypt's first appearance in 28 years, making him the oldest World Cup debutant too. Number 18. Rafael Marquez racks up the record. Appearing at his 5th World Cup, Mexico's Rafael Marquez equaled the record held by Germany's Lothar Matthäus and his fellow Mexican Antonio Carbial. Special mention to Gigi Buffon, who also made his national squad 5 times, but didn't play his first time there. Marquez has played in every World Cup since 2002, and having captained his side in each of them, set a new record for most tournament appearances as captain. He also set a new bar for most appearances as captain, playing in his 17th World Cup game when Mexico played their inevitable round of 16 exit game to Brazil. Ironically, if he hadn't been subbed off at half-time, they might have just squeezed it out. Number 19. Ageless Ronaldo. By scoring against Spain in Portugal's first game of the 2018 World Cup, Cristiano Ronaldo equaled the record for most tournaments with a goal scored, joining legends like all-time World Cup top scorer Miroslav Klose, fellow Germany legend Yuri Seeler, and Pelé. Not content to simply equal a record, by the end of the game Ronaldo had set one himself, the oldest player to score a World Cup hat-trick. With that sublime free kick, Ronaldo etched himself even more prominently into the history books at age 33 years and 130 days. Number 20. Ageless Mbappe. On the opposite end of the ageless spectrum, Kylian Mbappe is a mere boy of 19 years old, but that didn't stop the world's second most expensive player of all time from scoring twice for France against Lionel Messi's Argentina to send them home, or again in the final to plunge the dagger into Croatia. He became the youngest player since Pelé in 1958 to score twice in one game, and also in the final, so on stats alone, he's already on his way to the legendary status he seems to be destined for. A player for the ages. Which one of these incredible feats was your favourite? And did you watch any of them be broken live? Let us know in the comments below, along with what other videos you'd like to see now that the World Cup is over, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any. Give this one a like if you've enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Lloyd Mallison, and we'll see you soon.